So 3 separate passages, 3 short readings. So the first is Hebrews 12:2, that says, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. And then 1 Corinthians 1, verse 18 tells us this. For the message about Christ's death on the cross is nonsense to those who are being lost. But for those of us who are being saved, it is God's power. And finally, from 1 Corinthians 1:18, the New International Version this time says, Christ crucified is God's power and wisdom. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. Amen.
Well, this morning I was thinking about different signs that we see around the road, and I found a couple on the internet, of course, the only place to go, about different signs that there are around, not just in this country, others as well. So road signs. One said, suicidal deer on the run. Or the one I like is this one, caution. This sign has sharp edges. Do not touch the edges of this sign. And that's all it said. Or this one, beware of the dog. The cat's not very trustworthy either. Or caution, pedestrian slippy when wet. Or my favourite probably is, unattended children will be given an espresso and a free puppy. Absolutely one way of making sure that doesn't happen. Or finally, another sign, warnings, limbs may fall off. So there are lots, I think that was the trees actually, not bodies, but there are lots of signs around. And I'm thinking of signs this morning, one particular sign that you'll see as we go along. But before we got that, I was talking to Nick the other day, and I asked him a few things. The first thing I asked Nick is if he could add up very well, if his maths were up to it. He said, yes, I can do a simple sum, no problem at all. So I set him a simple sum, which was this one. Now, do we think he got it right?
Yes.
Well, there was 1 for yes and 2 for no.
Maybe.
Do we think we got it right? No. So what do? I give him a tick or a cross. Definitely a cross. He got that one wrong. And then I was talking to him a bit more. There we go. And I found in his pocket as we were talking, I found his Valentine's card that he forgot to give to Sharon. And this is it. Happy Valentine's Day. Sus, sus, sus. Oh, sorry, that's Welsh. Kiss, 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 kiss. Mustn't speak Welsh too much. Kiss, 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 kiss. So here again we have that sign, that cross. So the first time it says, you got it wrong. This time it says, I love you. Isn't he romantic? But just remember, he forgot to send it. The next thing I asked him is, where's your favourite place to eat when you go out, particularly for that romantic meal after you forgot to give her the card? Now, what do you think he said? Do you think he said Five Guys, Kentucky, or McDonald's? What do you think? You seem fairly sure about that. You see, the thing about this is it's a voting. So I want you to vote. So I think you're all voting for the same, aren't you? So I better put a cross in that square as well. So then we went on one last thing. There we are. And, well, we were talking about crossing the road. I was telling him to be very careful when he crossed the road to go home. And I asked him if he knew the Green Cross code, and he didn't. Now, those of us who are of a certain age, that's over 24, those of us who are of a certain age, hands up if you remember the Green Cross code. There we go. Some of you are just putting your hand up anyway, but there you go. The Green Cross code. And of course that came with a saying, didn't it, which said, stop, look and listen. The way to cross a road. And so I'm making sure that he made it home safely. He obviously did, because he's here today. But let's just go through those crosses again. because crosses tell lots of stories. Some of those signs I read, which were rather unusual, only told one thing. But crosses have different meanings. So we looked at the sun first of all. I thought I would set him something quite simple, but obviously it was a little difficult for him. So we have the cross which says he got it wrong. Hands up, all of you, if you've never got anything wrong. If you put your hands up, we will pray for you afterwards. Because we all do. We get things wrong, don't we? We make mistakes. Some of them are minor, some of them are big things. Sometimes we read the wrong song's words and sometimes we don't. But minor little things, they don't matter. But sometimes we do things that hurt people, things that are very bad. And we all do them. We don't mean to. Sometimes we might, but usually it just pops out. But we do things that hurt people. So a cross says, you got it wrong. We get things wrong. It's in our nature. I imagine if you were a parent, you never got to your growing child that was about 2 years of age and said, no, look, I'm going to teach you something. When I say to do something, you must turn round, stamp your feet and say no. And when I give you a plate of food, what you've got to do is you've got to get hold of it, throw it across the room and scream as if you were being murdered. We don't do that. That comes naturally. We all get things wrong. And then the second cross talks about love. And it doesn't matter how many wrong things we do, how wrong we get things, God says, I love you. And true love doesn't depend on just being right, just being good. True love carries us through whether we do things right or whether we do things wrong. And with God, he loves you anyway. And you may be thinking, I did something terrible this week. I really, really did. It was an awful thing. There'll be no forgiveness. But you see, God says, I love you. And true love always forgives. And God's love is true love. And he will always forgive. If we just go to him and say, Lord, I messed up. I got it wrong. He will forgive us. And maybe you're looking at your life and you say, I got a lot of things wrong. God won't love me. God won't want me to follow him. God doesn't care about me. But if you put it to God, he will forgive you. He says, I love you. You got things wrong. That was the cross. But I love you just the same. That's wonderful. And thirdly, well, this one talks about voting. So which way will you vote? Not whether you're having a meal at any of these places, but when God says, I love you and I want you to be my own, which way do you vote? Do you vote and say, yes, Lord, I will follow you. I give my life to you and I want to do what you want. I know you want to give me real life. And you put the cross on the right side and you say, yes, I'm going to follow you. Or do you choose not to follow him and say, no, I'm not interested? Or maybe the third box and you say, not just now, I'll wait and I'll think about it. So the choice is yours. The cross says you got things wrong. The cross says, I love you anyway. The cross says, you choose whether to accept that love or not. You choose whether to follow Jesus or not. You choose whether to serve him or not. It's your choice. You put the cross in the box you want. And I suggest you don't put it in the no box. And I suggest you don't put it in the wait box. Because the longer we wait, well, we just forget. If you don't know Jesus this morning, you put the tick and the cross in the yes box. And if you do that, you speak to someone who's been here this morning, either someone in the worship band, Nick or myself, and or Sharon, and we'd love to talk to you more about that. But there is another cross, of course, the cross of the Green Cross Code. And that says stop, look and listen. This morning, we've got things to do. You may have gone out for a walk and you stopped here, or you may have things to do this afternoon. But right now, stop. Just give God a moment. Look at what God can do. Remember what Nick did with that piece of paper, that God can do the impossible. Stop. Look to him and listen. Listen to what he says to you, that he loves you, that he forgives you, that he wants you to walk with him. And the final cross that we've got here that I haven't looked at just yet is this one. I'm going to have to do this a minute, excuse me. It's been going through the morning, there we are. And one final cross, because you see, God says you got it wrong. He says, I love you. He says, then choose me. And stop and look and listen. What are you going to do? And what do we stop and look and listen at? Well, it's the final cross. This cross. Not a the same shaped cross, but this upright cross. It talks of the cross that Jesus died on. And those readings said wonderful things, that Jesus died to forgive us. It said there that the world think these things are foolish, but the cross is strong and powerful. And if you come to know Jesus, the one who died for you, then you will find that power, that love, that grace, that mercy for you. And if you've known the Lord all your life, then be determined to put the cross in the right place. Yes, Lord, I will follow you. Whatever you've got for me this week, I will serve you. Whatever it is, yes, my cross is there. And then we follow him. Thank you.